One Nation claims to offer a way out of a national malaise. In reality, they would only make things worse. If you're considering supporting One Nation, there are at least 3 reasons to think again. First, One Nation is a column of smoke. Long on rhetoric but short on substance, One Nation's offering is a random grab bag, poorly defined, contradictory, and constantly changing positions that leave no clear sense of who they are or what they stand for. Their longest serving MP thinks the United States is the world's greatest terrorist organisation. And their newest MP is already voting with the Greens and the Teals. If you want to vote for a party because it's clear what they stand for, One Nation isn't it. Second, One Nation doesn't have the team needed to meet the challenges Australia faces. Australia is in the grip of an economic crisis. Fixing it is the single most important job of the next government. It requires a team effort. It is beyond a one person. Look at One Nation's team. In the end, it is a one-person show. It is a one-person show. Third, One Nation was sent as broke. The root cause of our economic crisis is an explosion in government. And One Nation's solution is to double down. Deep down, their true instincts are towards big government interventionism, but with even less of a concern than Labor about how to make the numbers add up. Their top 4 financial commitments alone could cost the budget in the order of $1 trillion over a decade, averaging about $100 billion a year. And they have made no clear or credible plan for how they'd pay for those commitments. One Nation's promise to abolish parts of the bureaucracy would cover about 1/15 of these commitments. Of course, it's easy to make promises when you're not a party of government. One Nation is a lot like the Greens in that regard. If they found their way into government, they'd learn the lesson the hard way. World history is littered with failed governments that don't bother paying for their promises. And it's their citizens who ultimately suffer the consequences. If unfunded, these promises would generate a surge in inflation, requiring the Reserve Bank to raise interest rates by around 3 percentage points to neutralise their effect. It would add about $20,000 a year in interest to the average new mortgage. And that's on top of the $30,000 a year Labor has already lumped into mortgages since they came to power. Our national debt, already nearing $1 trillion, would be on track to nearly triple to $3 trillion. Rising rates would then create a compounding feedback loop, and down that road lies a sovereign debt crisis. Their only alternative is deeper cuts to essential services, pensions and Medicare chief among them. That's why I warned that an eternity of pain would follow a One Nation government. You will not fix our nation's problems by blowing the joint up. So Australia needs change, but not destructive change. We need constructive change. Change that turns tough times into better times. And that can only come from a strong plan built on self-determination and enterprise by a team that believes in it and has lived it.
Angus Taylor just tore into One Nation with both barrels, and he didn't hold back. He's spot on about the big problem here. One Nation talks tough, but it's long on angry rhetoric and short on a serious plan. A grab bag of ideas that shift with the wind, no clear direction, and basically a one-person show around Pauline Hanson. That might fire up the frustrated, but it won't fix the mess we're in. Australia's staring down a proper economic crisis, skyrocketing cost of living, stagnant wages in real terms, and a national debt heading towards $1 trillion. Fixing that takes discipline, a proper team, and hard choices, not more big spending promises that don't add up. Taylor nailed their top commitments, around $1 trillion over a decade, with no credible way to pay for it. Cutting some bureaucracy won't even cover a fraction. The rest? More debt, more inflation, and the Reserve Bank jacking up rates even higher. That means another $20,000 a year on the average new mortgage, on top of what Labour's already delivered. Ouch. History's full of governments that spent like drunken sailors and left the bill for ordinary families. You end up with either punishing interest rates or savage cuts to services, pensions, and Medicare. That's not sticking it to the elites. That's hammering the battlers who can least afford it. Look, plenty of Aussies are rightly fed up with the major parties' failures on housing, energy prices, and migration overload. The anger is real, but one nation's approach risks blowing things up without a workable alternative. We don't need disruption for its own sake. We need constructive change, lower taxes, less wasteful spending, practical fixes on borders and building homes, and a focus on enterprise that actually lifts living standards. Taylor's laying down a marker. The coalition wants to be the grown-up alternative that delivers results, not just headlines. In tough times, Australians deserve better than smoke and mirrors.